What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Party on Broad. Our NFL draft preview continues with a breakdown of a position that's a little up and down. We're going to talk about it. It is the safety position. We're breaking down the top 3 prospects. And to help me do that, the man, the myth, the legend of SB Nation, Mark Schofield. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Schofield. What's going on, Mark?
What's going on, Crocky? Yeah, it's a different position group, but I do have to say this at the outset. I was telling you before we hit record, I spoke at my daughter's career day this morning, talking to 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Now, I live in suburban Washington, D.C., little north of D.C. in Maryland. I got to tell you, the amount of kids that told me their favorite football team was the Philadelphia Eagles, or that their favorite basketball team was the Philadelphia 76ers. And look, I'm in Commanders country. There's a lot of love for Jalen Hurts. So many kids ask me, have you ever talked to Jalen Hurts? Have you ever talked to A.J. Brown? Have you ever talked to Devonta Smith?
Wow.
And I was showing them as an example of some of the work that I do by the piece I wrote about Hurts getting his new deal. And I was scrolling through it on the big board in front of the classroom. And they're all like, can we see this play? We want to see this catch from Devonta Smith. We want to see this throw from Jalen Hurts. And so Eagles fans, Sixers fans, Philly fans, seems like the territory is expanding down towards Washington, D.C. So that's going to be cool to hear, right? That's
fascinating. I mean, I definitely understand the Jalen Hurts thing there. I mean, that is a likable dude, you know. So, but Embiid, Harden, I'm a little surprised.
I mean, I think it's, you know, when you're younger, like I remember like growing up, I mean, I'm a Patriots fan, Boston fan, all that stuff. But before, I was a Joe Montana Niners fan because they were winning and they were on TV. And so when you have success, it breeds more fans. And I think you're seeing that. So that's kind of cool. And if I'm just buying time because I don't want to talk about the safety class, if it seems like that's what I'm doing, maybe there's a little bit of that there too.
All right, let's jump in. But before we get into the top 3, this is an Eagles show. And I want to kind of pick your brain because it's like death, taxes, and Howie neglecting the safety position in the draft. You talk about Kyle Hamilton, Jaquan Brisker, Jalen Petrie in 2022, Javon Holland in 2021, Jeremy Chin in 2020. These are all guys, Mark. I've been doing this for a while that I absolutely are. I've got a man crush on these guys. Day 2, like Howie needs to draft these guys and he doesn't. Like what in your opinion, like what is your take on Howie's perspective on the safety position? Is it undervalued?
I mean, in my mind, it is. I've always been of the mind. I remember I did an exercise a couple of years ago for my buddy Dan Hatman, who's a former NFL scout, spent some time with the Eagles, Giants, and now he runs the Scouting Academy. He asked me, just as a sort of philosophical exercise, to just rank the positions on your starting 22. You know, quarterback, left tackle. And when I did it and I sent it back to him and he looked at it, he was like, man, I had safety, free safety, strong safety, I think in the top 10. Maybe even higher than that. I've always been of the mindset that safety is a critically important position. And I think even today's NFL, when you're playing too deep, you've got to have versatile safeties that can mix and match and interchange. And if you're going to be single high, you've got to have, like, the days of having a strong safety and a free safety are over. You've got to have players that can do both. But maybe I'm a sort of dying breed because it seems like, you know, Howie Roseman and other smart general managers, forward-thinking general managers, and you and I have talked a lot about Howie and his forward thinking and how he seems to be ahead of the curve. They looked at the safety position and they sort of devalue it. I wonder if Howie Roseman was given that same exercise, if he'd have safety in the top 15, 20 of the 22 because of the way he's handled the position. So I think it's a position group that has gotten undervalued, even in today's NFL. But people a lot smarter than me seem to take a different viewpoint.
Your top 3 safety prospects in the 2023 NFL draft. This one's going to be interesting. Floor is yours, man.
Yeah. So safety one, I think, is the safe one. And if we see one in the first round, it will be this player. That's Brian Branch from Alabama. Obviously, when you come out of a Nick Saban defense and you're asked to be the sort of star position player, not like, star player, but like the star position in that defense where you're sort of playing inside. It's kind of like how you've seen Jalen Ramsey used at the next level, where you play in the slot, but you can do a lot of different things. You've seen him outside. You've seen him as a deep safety, half field and single high. He can do it all. He's the prototypical modern safety. And you watch him, you see athleticism. You can see him carrying vertical routes from some number threes, by alignment. He's got great feel when he's in that. He had a pass breakup at the end of the game against Ole Miss, working against Mingo, who's a receiver that's generated sufficient buzz right now. And you see the ball skills. You see the length. He had a pass breakup against Mississippi State where it's sort of an out route from number 3. He comes under it and then gets high to break it up. So ball skills, athleticism, length. I think he's the complete safety. So he's my number 1. Number 2 is Sidney Brown from Illinois. And he's another name that's getting a ton of buzz right now. Had a very good pre-draft process, 6 interceptions this year, great recovery skills. He had a pass breakup against Minnesota. Again, out route versus the number 3 receiver. He matched it well. His game against Iowa, you saw a lot of him against Laporta, who might be a tight end that's going to go pretty early in this draft. He had a play against Virginia where he buzzes down from 2 high down to 1, comes underneath, almost picks off Armstrong. 2 picks against Northwestern, one of those where he's matching across the route. Recovery, ball skills, really like him. Physical player too, so I'm a big fan of his game. And then number 3 is Johnson, the Texas A&M kid. Doesn't have a ton of production, but seems like he's somebody that's probably going to be like a solid, safe, stable, mostly single high, 2 high type, more traditional safety. But he can do some stuff downhill, can do some stuff, he's willing to run the alley and play and run support. So he's a player I like. He's getting some, late first, early second type buzz. He's 53 for me, but a good player.
Yeah, the first 2 you mentioned are really interesting because you look at Brian Branch. That's a guy who I think, will dominate in the slot at the next level. Really good coverage skills, plays really well in the box, can cover tight ends. Sidney Brown can check off all the same boxes just as much as Brian Branch, just a little bit of a lighter version of Brian Branch. And Brian Branch was incredible in the college football playoff. He looked like the best on the football field at times. But probably not number 10, but number 30 for the Eagles. If Brian Branch is sitting there, does Howie go against his, vision and, pull the trigger and go Brian Branch at number 30 for the Eagles?
I'd love to see it for Philadelphia because he's such a great player. I don't know if he'll be there though. We did a group mock draft that's going to go up Monday before the draft at SB Nation, and my buddy JP, who's an Eagles fan, he ran to our virtual podium at 24 to grab him for Jacksonville. And so, I think Branch is a very talented player. I would say maybe Tampa Bay at 19 would be a good spot for him. There are some other potential landing spots, but I mean, look, if he's there for Philadelphia, I think he would be a very good pick. It's just like we talked about at the outset. Something tells me he goes elsewhere. Now, look, maybe if they address, say, defensive tackle at 6 and they decide that, look, the edge class hasn't fallen, the board hasn't fallen the way we like, maybe it could work. But even in that scenario, BJ Ojulari, who we talked about earlier, he might be staring them in the face with that pick at 30. So that might be the route they go. As much as I like Brian Branch, I think he'd be a great fit for Philly. Howie's history tells us it might not happen.
It's so confusing too, especially considering how much Chauncey Gardner-Johnson looks so great in that slot role. It's just a mystery. But let's go on to our next question of the night. Who is the safety prospect that you think has the most upside in this draft?
I think it's Sidney Brown. There are some other options that you could look at. I mean, you can make a case that a guy like Jordan Battle could have some upside. Robinson, the Florida State kid, like he was very good, but you look at 4.59 in the 40, so people were wondering if he's athletic enough. But still, you've seen some reporting saying, like, one AFC scout said that, like, you find a place for him, he can just flat out play. And so maybe if he has a better sort of NFL training camp experience and gets a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. And, people forget about the combine. Maybe he's got some upside. But then I look at Brown and I just see the production, the ball skills, the feel for the football, the ability to make plays, be disruptive. And I just think that, like you said, he's probably branched, but a little bit lighter, a little bit smaller. But something tells me you get him into an NFL sort of environment, workout regimen, training room, and all that good stuff, and he could really sort of flourish at the next level.
Yeah, he's really been one of the risers of this draft process. Had a phenomenal Senior Bowl, I believe.
Yes. Jim Nagy is out there just like screaming it from rooftops, like somebody draft this kid early. And like I said, look, he's my 2. I think you're high on him as well, but I think he's even got more room to grow.
Yeah. All right. Let's roll on to our next question. Who is the most underrated safety prospect?
His teammate, Jartavius Martin from Illinois. And I was watching him throughout this entire draft process, watching him again today to get ready for this show. Extremely versatile, and that's one of the things I like about Brown too, because, you watch him and you like seeing him on the outside, but the same thing with Martin, right? 23% of his snaps, according to the chart and data I looked at left corner, 24% of his snaps at right corner, but another 28% at safety, either half field or middle of the field safety, 10 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, extremely athletic with active hands. His change of direction skills, because he can play and move like a corner, but you can play him at safety. He had a pass breakup against Purdue where he had the movement skills of a corner as he's changing directions to match the route. He had a pass breakup where he's middle field post safety, gets to the sideline to break up a wheel route to the running back against Nebraska. When you've got somebody that moves like a corner but has the range of a true center fielder, that's a very talented player. And so I know it's a weaker safety class, but in my mind, he's the most underrated.
How good was that Illinois defensive backfield, man? Just
that team was so great. And look, they've got the guy up front, Newton, who's going to be coming out next year, I believe, who's extremely good as well. Like, that was a very good defense and a great secondary.
Yeah. Sidney Brown, Devin Witherspoon, Jartavius Martin, man. Now, I like the other guy, Chase Brown, the running back for Illinois, too.
Illinois had a very good team. And look, I mean, my wife went to the University of Illinois, and I kept telling her all fall, like, hey, your football team's pretty good. She's like, we were never good. I don't believe it. But they were a very, very talented team.
All right. Who is a day 3 safety prospect that's not being talked about enough, Mark?
This is more a guy that I just refuse to give up on. We were talking about our like way too early mock drafts and big boards and things like that from this time last year about this season's draft. Brandon Joseph, Notre Dame / Northwestern. I mean, he's fallen off a cliff. But he was talked about by me and others. He's like a first-round guy this time of season ago. Look, ran slow, 4.26 in the 40. That's not going to move, that's not going to move the needle for people. But look, I like the trigger. I like the movement. I like the way he comes downhill. I think he's got a bit of explosiveness and burst. It's just lawn speed might not be his thing. So maybe he's sort of limited schematically. Maybe you're going to play him down to the box a little bit more. But he's somebody that I can't quit. And so, if the Patriots find a way to draft him on day 3, I'd be really excited about it. And so I think he's the day 3 guy that there's something still there. He's a good football player. It's just maybe he hasn't had the best pre-draft process, but he's still a very good football player. Yeah,
big-time playmaker. Definitely has major flashes of playmaking. Very good cover safety.
Yeah.
Just struggled with consistency, tackling, all that kind of stuff. So awesome selection. Mark, that wraps it up, man. Where can we find you, man? What do you got going on at SB Nation?
Well, we're getting close to draft season. Obviously, we are a week out. We had our last, .com wide meeting today about the stuff we're going to be doing. You can look for what am I doing? Our final group mock, which I talked about, will be Monday. I'm going to have like a live tracker going on the first night of the draft. I'm going to have a round 2 mock for Friday morning after the first round gets done. I'm going to have best availables for day 2 and day 3. We're already talking about, the 24 mock drafts that are coming up. And like I said, we're building out an F1 hub and app and all that fun stuff. So the F1 coverage I'm basically like, football Mark is passing the baton to F1 Mark like Sunday morning, because I'll be like watching the Azerbaijan Grand Prix and then all that fun stuff goes live Monday the 24th. So no rest for the weary here, but all that fun stuff, SB Nation, SBNation.com, at Mark Schofield on the Bird app. Crocky, man, this has been such a fun series, though. Yeah. And I know we're going to be diving into some basketball stuff at some point. So it's been fun, man. And we'll be chatting soon before everybody knows it.
That is Mark Schofield. Again, give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Schofield. You'll thank me later. I will just recommend this. Just put aside 45 minutes or so and watch that Mandalorian finale, because chef's kiss, man. It is.
That's probably what I'm going to be doing tonight. Cannot wait. Cannot wait. I watched the penultimate episode from this season, The Spies, last night. And I was just like, that's probably part of the reason why I couldn't sleep last night, because it was so good.
All right. Again, thank you everyone who has watched any of these NFL draft videos. Much more content coming next week, as always, as we get ready for our NFL draft watch party on day 1 and day 2. Much more to come. Again, that is Mark Schofield. I am Dives. We'll catch you on the next one. Stay awesome, everyone.